Steve.
Hey everyone, it's Kate here from Marvelous Videos. Today we take a look at Butterball from Hellraiser, Origin Explained. The Hellraiser franchise holds a special place in the hearts of all fans, but it cannot be denied that the series was never the same after the first two movies. There were some exceptions, but the charm of the first two Hellraiser films was hard to recreate. Clive Barker painted such a vivid picture of the hellish world of the Labyrinth that the horror fans were taken aback. The twisted and demented extra-dimensional creatures, the Cenobites, were the most colourful addition to the universe, and these pain-loving demonic entities added the spark in the franchise. They existed in a different hellish realm, and the portals to this dimension could be opened with the help of certain artifacts, such as the Lament Configuration. The audiences were shocked by their horrifying mutilations and their cold-blooded violence that was almost always graphic in nature.
Not leaving us so soon, are you?
When we speak about the Cenobites, Pinhead certainly steals the show with his spine-chilling mannerisms and actions. However, there are some other Cenobites as well who demand your attention. Many of these Cenobites, such as the female Cenobite, the Chatterer, were equally intimidating, and even the others seen in the first two movies are tough to ignore. Today we are going to take you on another journey into Barker's haunting world, as we explore the Cenobite Butterball. He was seen in both Hellraiser and Hellbound Hellraiser 2, and this obese and disgusting Cenobite has quite an intriguing backstory. So sit back and enjoy a few minutes into the nightmarish world that hosts the most sickening creatures in horror history. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. An obese glutton to a massive Cenobite, the rewards of sin. Many of the Cenobites existed in a human form before being transformed into this monstrosity, and Butterball was one of them. Like his fellow Cenobites, he has no memory of his past human life, and not much has been revealed about the process of his transformation. All we know is that he was a man named Laszlo, a despicable character as a human who was plagued by his obsession of overeating. He laid waste to all his talents, and he was only concerned with pleasuring himself by means of more and more food. He was disappointed with his habits of overeating, but he couldn't stop himself from the pleasures of more food. His gluttony was his sin, and this brought him some kind of perverse pleasure. It went on to an extent where he kept eating and went on to become morbidly obese. Even with the satisfaction of food, he felt that something was missing, and he sought more material and physical pleasures. At this point, he first came across the cursed Lament Configuration, and he readily solved the puzzle box when he was promised everything he could desire. However, the opening of the portal to the hellish realm introduced him to a new way of life. The human Laszlo was then transformed into a Cenobite, and he became a member of Pinhead's original gash.
We want the man who did this.
Butterball underwent extreme body modifications and mutilations, just like all the other Cenobites. He retained his obese physique, and apart from his massive size, he can be characterized by a series of stitches through his eyelids. These are usually hidden by a pair of round sunglasses, which add a comical touch to this demented creature of hell. There are some changes in his movie appearances from his role in Clive Barker's novella. He was introduced as a high-ranking Cenobite in the novel, and he had plenty of dialogue. However, in the movies, he's a lower-ranked Cenobite who hardly ever makes a sound. All he did was lick his lips occasionally with his bloated tongue. It's been shown that Butterball is more than capable of being extremely violent in combat. His obese stature might be deceiving, because he fights with fierce ferocity when the need arises. The design of Butterball in the movies was simply impeccable. He was specifically designed to look like it was impossible for him to eat anything more. His stomach was ripped open, which indicated that he could directly interact with his organs. Butterball in the Hellraiser Timeline, a lost potential. The fans of Hellraiser, especially the ones familiar with the novels and comic books, will agree that Butterball was somewhat wasted as a character in the movies. He was hardly assigned much of any importance, and he was more of an additional force for Pinhead. He first appeared to take Frank to hell after he solved the Lament Configuration to fulfill his lust. Frank was then tortured repeatedly for his sins by the jailers. Later, when Kirsty opened the puzzle box, Butterball appeared with the other Cenobites and they came to an agreement, where Kirsty was spared in return for Frank. However, Frank killed Larry and stole his skin, which confused Kirsty. Eventually, Frank could not escape and he was ripped apart with hook chains and sent back to hell. In Hellraiser 2, Dr. Chenard used Tiffany to open the puzzle box because of his lust for knowledge. Butterball appeared once again with Pinhead, Chatterer, and the female Cenobite, and they encountered Kirsty. They explained the laws of hell to her and she was sent off to explore the Labyrinth. She helped them remember their past lives and the Cenobites wanted to repay her for their enlightenment. They all tried to protect Kirsty from the Dr. Cenobite, and Butterball was the second one to be killed. He was struck by a spear in his chest and he never appeared further in the franchise.
Just shame. No more delays, Kirsty. No more teasing. Time to...
Butterball in the comic books and other written works. This Cenobite was supposed to be way more important than what you've seen in the movies. Clive Barker was forced to change his mind because the extremities of the costume did not allow the man donning a suit to speak a word. In the written work, however, Butterball takes centre stage, and he is portrayed as the leader of the Cenobites, with Pinhead as his subordinate. Initially, he was seen next to Pinhead, Sloth, and the female Cenobite, as they went ahead to demand a sacrifice from the small town of Pension-Veneur. The artists and poets living in the town had struck a deal with the Cenobites, according to which they would be empowered to create masterpieces in return for an occasional sacrifice, and they promised their most perverse works of art to the Cenobites. Pinhead's gash came down to claim one such sacrifice, and Butterball seemed to be an important character in this group. He was also present when Doomsayer was attempting to create a nuisance by spreading doubt of Leviathan to the other Cenobites. He was also the one to deal with a horse trainer named Cassidy, who was thrown into hell. He threw her into the creation chamber, which transformed her into one of the Cenobites. One of the most interesting stories surrounding Butterball is the one featuring the character Janice Bauer, a great actress. A director named Steven Sigourney wanted her to form the shape of pain, and she started to obsess over the task. She cuts herself and has strange dreams of being tortured by the Cenobites in a hellish realm. In one such dream, she interacted with Butterball, who claimed to be a fan of her work and asked her for an autograph. These dream experiences helped her complete the shape of pain, and she opened the Lament Configuration to travel into hell. Here, she met Pinhead, the female Cenobite, and Chatterer, and she was brutally tortured in hell. The director filmed this sequence of Janice getting tortured to use in his movie, and she never recovered from hell's influence following this incident. Another instance of his appearance was when a woman solved the Lament Configuration and summoned the Cenobites Pinhead, Butterball, and Wolfface. She was furious about the death of her cats, and she made a deal that would allow her to live an extra year in return for allowing the Cenobites to take her neighbour Thomas, who was responsible for the death of the cats. After a year, she realises her childish mistake, but it's too late and she is dragged to hell. Butterball has some interesting and important storylines, and it's unfortunate that these haven't been translated on screen. We would certainly love to see Butterball in a more important role, and this obese Cenobite can turn out to be a nice addition for future additions to the franchise.
Oh, Kirsty. So eager to play. So reluctant to...
New Hellraiser movie announced. Speaking of future additions to the franchise, the upcoming new Hellraiser movie is creating quite a stir among the fans. It's being produced by David S. Goyer, and he has revealed that he intends to create a new chapter in the Hellraiser legacy. The narrative is supposed to take inspiration from its original violent roots. And although the identity of Pinhead hasn't been officially revealed, it is believed that Jamie Clayton will step into the shoes of the legendary Doug Bradley. The other members of the cast include the likes of Adam Faison, Brandon Flynn, Drew Starkey, and Goran Visnich. The most interesting news for Hellraiser fans is the inclusion of Clive Barker in the project's creative team. The creator of the Hellraiser universe is also working on an unrelated HBO series, which is also an adaptation of his property. He seems ecstatic about the new movie because the story makes good use of the Hellraiser mythology and intends to honour the original. It's supposed to release later this year, and if our expectations are rewarded, it's going to be a real treat for fans. We hope you enjoyed learning more about Butterball. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time at Marvelous Videos.